All right, this is my first attempt at making a video, so we'll see how this goes. If it works, then we'll do more in the future. But anyway, this is going to be probably just a refresher for something that we already did in class. So line quality is really important in our drawings. And so there are two ways of thinking about that line quality. One is we could be thinking in terms of the contour of something. Okay, so I can make a circle, for example, and if I use one sort of line, right, same sort of intensity all the way through, it's rather flat. If there's any movement here, it's because of the overlapping of lines. But for the most part, it's the same sort of line intensity. But I could draw the same circle with a different kind of line and imply something a little bit more interesting anyway. So this line here is going from light to dark to light again and dark again. So the implication is that there's maybe some sort of light hitting it from the sides possibly, okay, and causing that contour line to be darker in some areas and lighter in others. Now, but also when it comes to shading, so let me try to do a quick sketch here. Let's say if I'm drawing an apple, which is one of the exercises that we're going to do in a little bit, and we're going to base that whole exercise on what's called a cross contour, a series of lines that basically indicate the cross sections of the apple, and they will be our guide for what kinds of lines we're going to put on the surface to describe the lights. Right now I'm just describing the form. I'm describing a little bit of the volume by using these lines that kind of wrap around. So hopefully in class I will have done a better job with this, and this is just a refresher for you. Okay, so even here I could already start to vary the line. Maybe I'll keep my lines lighter on the top, and as I rotate to the side, maybe a little bit darker and lighten up again, and then maybe darker under here. Right, so varying that line intensity, so it just implies something, that there's a light hitting it. But the issue I want to talk about here is how to shade with lines. And a lot of students not having control of the pencil will shade this way. They'll start with the line and then stop the line and go next to it. This is cross hatching, of course, right? Or hatching in this case. Right? Just a series of parallel lines. And this is fine. This is actually very nice. Now, the issue comes up if we're trying to create a very smooth transition from one set of lines to another. Oftentimes what happens is if we try to do something like this, what happens is a line starts to be implied, or an edge. Something's happening there. So how do we avoid that? Okay, we avoid that by, I'm going to show you in just a second. We avoid that by, rather than bringing the pencil to the paper, touching it to the paper, and then starting our line and stopping it, we actually start the movement of making a mark, come down, touch the paper, and come back off again. So we come down, touch the paper, and come back off, just like this. So the line starts off lightly, goes thicker and darker, and then lightens up again. So I'm going to do this a little bit quicker, and so the movement looks something like this. So that when I have to come up here, I basically overlap the lines. I still have somewhat of an edge. Okay, so I still have right in through here, you can still make out there's like a slightly darker gray than there is here or here. But it's a lot different than what we have here. That's a very strong edge. So the idea is that line quality can take on many forms. But for when it comes to shading in this way, where we're looking to achieve smooth transitions, we have to develop the ability to come in, lay our line down lightly in the beginning, and then soften up as we come off the paper. And this will make more sense as I work through this drawing. So a series of basically vertical lines. Now, so I'm thinking maybe like there's a light coming from the top, and I have my shadow area starting in through here someplace. Well, this underside of the apple is also going to be in shade. So now I have to find a way to make these marks that don't create a hard edge like this. Okay, so if you look at that, you'll see it's basically one gray. Now I'm going to come over this with more and more lines. Okay, so it's going to be, in time, it's going to get easier and easier for me to be able to find nice smooth transitions. Okay, now these lines also could be running in this direction. You may notice that I'm holding the pencil in a way that's different than what I showed you guys, but the reason for that is it's a much smaller drawing, and then also I've resolved the issues of the proportions of the apple, the perspective of the apple, and now I'm shading, and so because of the scale of the drawing and the detail that I'm interested in, I can transition into a different grip if and when I want to. Okay, so the idea is that all these lines come in softly, go hard, and then pick up and trail off. So it's soft, hard, light. It's almost as if, let's say if we're looking at the piece of paper from the edge, the pencil tip kind of comes down, touches the paper, makes its mark, and comes back up. So your line segment is from here to here where it touches the paper. It's going to be lighter, darker because there's more pressure, and then lighter here. Alright, so your exercise is to do cover 2 pages of your sketchbook with hatching. It'll look something like this. I'm not sure if the whole video, if the screen is able to capture the whole surface, but anyway, your sketchbooks, I believe, are about 9 inches wide by about either 12 or 14 inches tall. So I think I'm working on a much larger sheet of paper, so I'm just making a mark there so I kind of get practically the same width as your sketchbooks. And then starting at the top of the page or close to it, I can make a box that's maybe like 1 inch. Okay, and then you're just going to fill in that whole space with lines like this, just like in the other video. This way of shading, by the way, gives the opportunity for error. You have lots of room for error. Okay, so even if you overlap some lines, let's say I keep going over the same line over and over again, it didn't seem to affect it all that much. Okay, and then in this case, you're not having to think so much about where your line starts and stops, because if you make your mark lightly enough in the beginning of the line and lighten it up as you come off the page, you'll never have a problem. So in through here, for example, there's almost it's almost one tonality all the way through. You might sense it's a little bit darker in through here than it is through here. That has more to do with my spacing than with the pressure I'm putting on the pencil. But the movement I'm making as well is actually happening not in my hand. So if you look at my wrist is very stable. I'm not doing this. Okay, I'm not actually even doing anything with my elbow. You can't see this, but the movement is basically it is happening from my shoulder. So the pivot point is my shoulder, and that's why I'm able to make fairly straight lines. Okay, because if it was purely shoulder, then I would be making marks like this, and I'm not doing that. So I am having to flare out my elbow a little bit to keep these lines going straight. But the point is this, is that however it is you make these marks, whatever mechanics you have in terms of your body movements, okay, the point is we don't want to have any edges running in through here. And so we'll say 1 inch, start like a 1/4 inch down from the top of the page, do a 1 inch band, maybe 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch space, and then another 1 inch band. Okay, And you'll do that all the way down the page.